tell me more stories, and don't go back too far. And he said,
I don't care if they're true or not, just tell me more stories.
he said, I know I'm a child of God. I've known that all my life. I want to know who I really am. Tell me more of these. I want to know more about my Spurlock ancestors. And so you've been the inspiration for this. And Gigi and I have worked hard. I've done a lot of background work. And Gigi's the storyteller of the family. So get yourselves comfortable. They say in all meetings now these days, would you please turn off your cell phones? And would you please hold your questions until the end? It's because Gigi, she's put together these stories, and they will flow nicely. And I promise you, so she could go till midnight, but she won't.
Maybe.
And anyway, we would now like to have Randy give us an opening prayer, and then I'm going to give just about 5 or 10 minute background, and then we will launch into the stories. A couple of minutes until I've been on a research trip to the Panhandle of Texas. I went there with 5 goals and accomplished every one of them. And the first one was I wanted to see the country where my daddy walked and where our aunts and uncles walked. And one of the neighboring cowboys, and where they ran and played, and one of the neighboring cowboys said those Spurlock foremen and record kids could not fire out of the rocks with their bare feet. They were so tough-footed. But all these little kids growing up, and I wanted to see that place, and I just knew there was never a doubt in my mind that I'd be able to see it. But when it was all, and after I had seen it, I realized it was a miracle that I got to see it. We went to this is where they lived is under this lake now. But we were driving, I stayed with a dear friend in Amarillo. We drove along this road, we came this way. Every gate, this is the canyon where they live. Every gate that turned down that way was locked, and it wasn't locked with one padlock, it was locked with about 10 padlocks. It's oil country, cattle country, but when we got to the one that we could tell where we needed to turn, the gate was open and there was an oil well there, guy reading his gauges.
Wow.
And we ran up to him and talked to him and says, can we go on down to the canyon, and will you please not lock us in? And he said, oh, sure, you go on down there. I'm going to be here for about an hour. I'll come and check on you. So we went on down and were able to walk along that canyon. And I gathered up rocks, some of maybe the very ones that our kids knocked sparks out of. And I brought some home. My children know me. I pick up rocks, don't I, dear? And they get gifts. That's what they'll inherit. That sort of thing. What?
What canyon?
Martin Canyon.
Yeah, so you were at Martin.
Yeah.
It's not all covered up?
No, if the lake is low, they're in a miserable drought. If we had 4-wheelers or horses, and if we'd have had a long time, we could maybe, if we'd have known where we were going, we could have found it. I bet there are old places showing now. The lake's way down there. So I was able to accomplish that. And when it was all over, I thought, it's a miracle we got in here. Mm-hmm. It's an absolute miracle.
We believe in the God of miracles, don't we?
Amen.
I wanted a copy of this map. I saw it online. You can look at it later. But it has all the ranches that were there, the big ranches with their brands. I really wanted to find that, and I was able to find it. I wanted to find Grandpa Spurlock's brand. And I thought, what a dumb thing. I almost don't dare ask for it. But we were, because we did not have time to go to the courthouse in Dumas, but we were in another museum in Canyon, which is way south, not too far south of Amarillo. And I said, by any chance, do you have a record of the brands of the area? And he said it was a WPA project in the 30s. They indexed all those brands. He handed me a book of indexes. I picked out the brands I wanted and copied.
Oh my God.
And so this is fun. You're like, so I got a whole bunch of Spurlock, the foreman, a bunch of their friends. We know Grandpa's brand. He had more than one. We know Grandma's brand. It was Lazy B with an S on the hip. She was not lazy.
With an S on the end. Yeah, not all of you got that.
You know I did.
But this is going to be fun. And anyway,
Betty, who owns those brands
BS.
now?
hold all questions to the end. There's no way in the world I could find out. There isn't. There is no way. And I wanted to see if I could find some vital records. I found some that we don't have at the library, but I did find some that I'm going to be able to upgrade and get some temple work done with. So we got those goals.
Wonderful.
And now, just a teeny bit of background. One other miracle was at the canyon at the museum in Dumas. I really wanted a couple of books that we have at the library, and I can't get them. Or if I want to spend $75 or $100, I could maybe. They had those very books I wanted for $5 each. So I've got some of those up there. We've got a lot of history of our family in it. So anyway, we got all of that done. You probably know a lot more Texas history than you think you do, because that era was the thing that movies are made of, that TV shows are made of, that books are written about. There's a lot of famous characters that lived right at that contemporary with our people. One of them was Charles Goodnight. He was a little bit older than Grandpa, kind of between his father. And he was called the father of the Panhandle. He was a rancher, the first one that did the big trail from moving cattle from lower Texas up to some market. He realized that there was, it was good cattle country, no place to market it, and he pioneered that. He pioneered a lot of things. I won't go. You could Google him, and you'd get movies have been made about him. Who saw Lonesome Dove? Very loosely based on his life, but it's I promise. Larry McMurtry knew about him. I'm wondering if our own father worked for him. There are so many parallels between Daddy and the way he ranched and Charles Goodnight that it's spooky almost. And I'll leave it there. You can find out more. I don't want to take time away from Gigi's story. Quanah Parker, how many have heard of him? He was the last great Comanche chief. His mother was Cynthia Parker, who was a white captive. And she was captured from Parker County, Texas, Fort Parker, Texas. When she was 9, she became so totally integrated into the Comanche culture that when she was rescued by Charles Goodnight, was one of the kind of on the fringes of that. She was unhappy. She sickened and died. But her first son was Quanah Parker, who was half white. He was very instrumental in working with the government in getting the Indians onto the reservations. And he knew it was coming. And that's a sad time. But it had to come. It happened. And he did everything he could to make it right and to make it good for his people.
And that's what the John Wayne movie, The Searchers, is based on.
And they're...
Which one? Is it?
The Searchers is based on.
Yeah, that's based on it. I've got this whole thing, and I'm not going to go into it, but every one of those things are based on that. But, on something in that text. But that is a fascinating time in history when our parents were there. grandparents. The buffalo herds were gone, pretty much, not totally. Buffalo hunters, there was a market for the hides. They slaughtered them by the millions. And that did the Indian, that so-called solved the Indian problem. The Indians had to go to the reservation, learn to live like the white man. So it was, the Indians were pretty much on reservations. The buffalo were gone. It was the era of the big ranches. Most, and this is something I didn't know, most of those big ranchers were the huge ones, the XIT, the LIT, the Matador, those huge ranches were the wealthy people from England, Ireland, and Scotland that formed big cattle companies. They knew cattle. Oh, Charles Goodnight was one of the very first to try bring in crossbreeding, and so did several of the others. But anyway, that reminded me of Papa. He was all interested. So that's where they were coming to. They came from Arkansas. This is, and I'm not. Let's don't do it now, but later when you can see kind of loosely the route that they came, all from Arkansas, and they came from Arkansas in the year 1805, and now I'm going to turn it over to Gigi. And William, before you do that, would you make sure this is turned on? I'm going to do we're going to do voice recording as well as. Anyway, welcome Aunt Gigi.
Yay!